Okay? Good. The subject I will address, first subject I will address, is of interest to young and old, man and beast, to everyone without exception. The subject is the technology of wishing. How to formulate your wish in such a way that it has some chance of being realized. And a consideration with less popular appeal, the responsibilities involved in wishing. You might say the ethics of wishing. My own interest in the subject was rekindled when this book came to my attention. Now, it's called On the Frontiers of Science by G. Harry Steen and published by Athenaeum Press in New York. The book was given me by one Len Magruder, who has now founded the Magruder Foundation to investigate subjects on the frontiers of science. He's a retired psychology professor with a keen interest in gambling systems, among other things. Gambling does not interest me in the slightest. Nothing costs more than what you don't pay for. You want to win like Nick the Greek? The price is you will become Nick the Greek. I don't want to do that. Well, now here in this book is something called the wishing machine. Chapter 9. First there's a brief description as to how this device is made. It's pretty simple, looks like. Here we are. When a symbolic sample, a photograph of a plant or person, for example, or it could be a lock of hair, fingernail peelings, anything. This is pure sympathetic magic. Then you put it between the two copper input plates and the amplifier is turned on. The experimenter then consciously thinks of some change he desires to occur in. The symbol in the sample placed between the plates. According to private correspondence with John W. Campbell, Jr., this device achieved a 90% plus kill ratio for Japanese beetles in 90 test plots. Achieved a 70% kill against corn borers in other tests. Destroyed tent caterpillars. All but eliminated acne from the skin of his adolescent daughter. Eliminated a number of severe warts on an infant girl. And here's the author's experience. It seems that his little girl was suffering from very severe warts. It had a number of medical treatments which were unavailing. So I placed a photograph of my daughter between the input plates of my wishing machine, turned on the battery power, and consciously thought about those warts going away, about killing the virus that was causing the warts, and about my daughter without them. So we left it on. The result was frightening. Within 3 days, my daughter's warts had decreased markedly, including those that were beginning to grow inside her nostrils. Within 4 weeks, she was free of warts and has not had anything like them since. I disassembled my wishing machine because I was afraid of what I might do with it. It seemed that this phenomenon involved too much personal power of a sort I didn't understand and felt that I might not be able to control. The machine was also sheer outright magic, whose consequences went far beyond that of strange machines such as the dowsing rod or some other he describes in here. Yes. Oh, this one. Okay. Well, so in other words, He just couldn't handle it. Well, wishers should be made of sterner stuff. It works, so he's going to disassemble it, for Christ's sakes. Then he says that this is not a murder machine, that it seems to be only useful against fairly simple living organisms. Well, I say if it'll kill a corn borer, it could kill a person. I mean, it really is potentially a killing machine. Well, well, anyway, Magruder had one of these machines made up and gave it to me for experimental purposes. And well, I had some success. Well, wait a minute. Here are a few of the if you're going to make a wish, there are certain rules. One of the best was formulated by Eliphas Levi. Vouloir sans désirer, voilà le secret de le pouvoir. To wish or will without desiring. Always visualize your wish is already accomplished. All wishes must be unconditional. I mean, if you're going to say, yeah, I want it, but forget it. It's dead on the launching platform. And then, since your wish is unconditional, a question of responsibility arises. Ask yourself what would be necessary to realize your wish. How many of you have read The Monkey's Paw? I was hoping for more than that. Well, this is a perfect example. It's one of the best stories on the three wishes, I think, in the language. Well, the story is this couple living there with their son, very respectable, staid people, and an old sailor friend comes in, and he has this monkey's paw with him. And three people will have three wishes granted, and this magic was put into the monkey's paw by an old fakir to show that people shouldn't interfere with fate, that their wishes will bring them nothing but unhappiness. Well, so the old sailor, he's had his three wishes, and he throws it in the fire, and the host goes and picks it out. He said, I threw it on the fire. If you keep it, don't blame me for what happens. Pitch it on the fire again like a sensible man, and of course he won't. Okay, so he makes about one of the stupidest wishes you could possibly make. Ask for money. Oh, boy. Well, says it seems that I have all I want. If you cleared the house, you'd be quite happy, wouldn't you? Said Herbert, that's the son. Well, wish for 200 pounds. Then that'll just do it. Well, he did. I wish for 200 pounds, said the old man distinctly, holding the monkey's paw in his hand. A shuddering cry from the old man. It moved, he cried with a glance of disgust at the object. As I wished, it twisted in my hand like a snake. Oh, well, you just imagined it, dearie. Okay, now, next day, a man comes around to call. Rather mysterious stranger, and he's obviously very ill at ease. I was asked to call, he said at last, and stooped to pick up a piece of cotton from his trousers. I came from Ma and Megan's. That's the factory where the son works. The old lady started. Is anything the matter? Has anything happened to Herbert? What is it? They're there. Yes. Is he hurt? Demanded the mother wildly. The visitor bowed his head in assent. Badly hurt, he said quietly, but he is not in any pain. Oh, thank God, thank God, Caught in the machinery. He was the only one left to us, he said, turning gently to the visitor. It is hard. The other coughed. The firm wished me to convey their sincere sympathy with you in your great loss, he said. I beg that you will understand I am only their servant. The factory more and more disclaim all responsibility. They admit no liability at all, but in consideration of your son's services, they wish to present you with a certain sum as compensation. That's the first wish. A couple of days later, she gets an idea. What? She's gonna she gets the monkey's paw. She's gonna wish her son back to life. Yeah. So then there's a loud knock resounded through the house. It's Herbert, she screamed. It's Herbert. What are you going to do? It's my boy. And she's going down, of course, to open the door. For God's sakes, don't let it in. It was in a terrible state, you understand. I didn't want to tell you this, but my God, don't let that thing in here. So, anyway, she's struggling with the bolt. Her husband was on his hands and knees, groping wildly on the floor in search of the paw. If he could only find it before the thing got in. Well, he heard the chair drawn back and the door opened. A cold wind rushed up the staircase, a long, loud wail of disappointment and misery from his wife. The street lamps flickered on a quiet and deserted road. Very good handling of the three wishes. Well, now, that story, if I ever again have to teach a class in creative writing, I would certainly assign that, because there are any number of stories that can be written on that subject of the monkey's paw, the wish thing. There's almost no wish that you can make which isn't very, very dubious indeed. So, with these considerations in mind, I tried the machine. And beginner's luck. First one was Magruder himself suffers from, I think you call it kinnitis, ringing in the ears. Well, it can be. I think there are about 10 million people in America who have this condition. And it can be an absolute torment. I mean, driving people to suicide. They feel like they've got freight trains going through their head. And apparently there's nothing that the medical profession can do about it, but they're working on it. Well, it occurred to me right away that a good idea would be this, that he record the closest approximation of this ringing on a tape recorder, and then start slowing it up, running it backwards, getting control of it, in other words, getting it outside himself, and then slowly dampening it down. Well, he started to do this, and I also used the wishing machine. But at the very time that we synchronized it later, that I was using the machine, he did have a dramatic improvement in his condition, which has continued to this day, I'm glad to say. Not completely gone, but considerably alleviated. I think the tape, well, we don't know whether it was the tapes or the machine or whatever, possibly both, I don't know. And then also there was a growth on my cat's lower lip. One of the cats has a growth on its lower lip. Surgery on the lip, of course, is very difficult because the cat will eat, and it's very difficult for the surgery on the lip to heal. Well, I had some considerable success there. That is, it's gone down to the point where we don't need surgery, according to the vet. No luck in getting a lost cat back, and no luck with a friend's emphysema. Well, of course, you got, so many good ones and so many bad ones. I don't know anything about electronics or to what extent this device could be improved, or maybe someone could find just a simple little circuit, something that they could patent. As it is, you've got nothing you can patent. And that would really make it a little more than just, so many good ones and so many bad ones. And there would certainly be a fortune in that. I mean, the title alone, the wishing machine, that's a real winner. As I say, there's so many different stories that you could write on the subject of the wishing machine. Let's see. Well, mister, I don't say it works, but I know the man cleared the acne off his daughter's ugly face. Nobody seen just how ugly it was till he cleared the acne off, and maybe he shouldn't have done it like that. Then he wished the hemorrhoids of his grandmother to recede. Before there was night crawlers, now there's like those little red worms you play shit fretting on your hook. Another bloke kills a tapeworm in his maiden aunt, and her gained 10 pounds in 1 week. Well, do anything positive like bringing back a lost cat. He's looking for a lost cat, too. Well, I don't rightly know, but I figure with this artifact, the sky might not be the limit. All is in the not done, the diffidence that faltered. How's that? Ezra Powell. Tell Ezra to pull down his vanity, and bear in mind that this is a murder machine. And this you gotta hear. Man wished his neighbor dead, neighbor went full crazy and come after the wisher with a chainsaw. Cut him in 2 sections, like the lady saw it in half-act. Difference being the wisher was in no condition to take a bow. And then the neighbor dropped dead from the fun of it. So think before you wish out some rotten weed wish. The gods of chance don't like whiners, welchers, and pikers. Feed a whiny wish through this machine, and you will soon have ample cause to whine. And from half-assed wishers shall be taken even that which they have. I only want one thing. In that case, you'll likely get it one way or another. So he wishes, makes an unconditional wish for Smoker's return, regardless of any consequences, knowing that the fulfillment of his wish might occasion an earthquake, or a winter tornado might even rip the known universe apart. In other words, you've got to be able to take those chances if you're going to use this machine. The title, he didn't say it, but I'm sure it comes from that old story, you take something that a monkey likes, like almonds or raisins, and put it in a coconut or a box with a hole that's big enough in the monkey's paw. And he reaches in there and grabs a handful of these, whatever it is, and he can't get his hand back out, and he's too dumb to let go of what he's got, just like Homo sap. Yeah. Well, you can turn up story material anywhere. Some more on this, variations on the monkey paw. Someone makes a simple wish. I just want to do my job better than anybody has ever done it before. Oh boy, is he in for trouble. So the wish is a cop. At first when he starts cracking cases, everybody likes it and he gets promoted, but Well, and it goes on, and boy, they just want to be rid of him. It doesn't pay to get too good at anything. And so forth. Someone wants to write a great book, but it is so great nobody can stand to read it. So, whatever you wish for, and of course, some people naturally would wish for some gift like second sight. That's a very common wish. Well, that's got a lot more sense than trying to wish for money. That's about the worst thing you can wish for, something solid and three-dimensional like money. I haven't seen any stories. This would be another good exercise for a class on the Tylenol Excedrin killer. Trying to get into his mind. Well, obviously the guy's got something about painkillers, because both of them, you see, there was extra strength Tylenol and extra strength Excedrin. Yeah. So I don't know what is in his mind, whether he disapproves of painkillers or what. He's got something on painkillers. Yeah, one on that. There are two little incidents picked up from the paper. Someone who recognized his death and then insisted on being killed by an unwise physical attack on his own instrument of death. Just about as silly a thing as a man could do. Well, this man got drunk and was swimming in a slough in Florida when he saw two alligators. In a frenzy of rage, he attacked the alligators, screaming obscenities. And the alligators dragged him under the water and drowned him. Of course, nobody did anything about it. They said he got what was coming to him. The other young man got on a bus muttering imprecations, and there was an old 85-year-old man sitting there. And he looked at him and said, "You!" and pulled the old man from his seat and threw him to the floor. And the old man said, "You don't know who you're messing around with." So then the old man pulled a .25 automatic from his raincoat pocket and fired 3 shots, killing the youth instantly. He was acquitted. Now, this is a point I've made many times before in my talks here at Naropa. But I know that it's happened to me many times that someone had to tell me something 10 times before I finally heard it. This is just a simple observation on the way human perception actually functions. Everything you see has a special meaning for you because you see it. Seems obvious, but in practice it comes as a shock to many people. And people have been brain damaged by the scientific dogma that there is no relation between human consciousness and so-called external reality. So I just always gave this exercise to my students, and I'll get to it here in a moment. So this scientific mentality is quite as dogmatic as the old devil snatchers of the Inquisition. One side has said anyone writing or publishing anything on a so-called ESP and flying saucer should be publicly horsewhipped and refrain from further activity. And another said he would not believe in ESP no matter what evidence was offered. Now, what is the basic dogma of science? It is very simple and quite indefensible that physical the underlying dogma is quite simple. Human consciousness must never be allowed to influence physical processes or other consciousnesses. Well, to me, this is an absolutely indefensible position, invalidated by simple observation on the part of anyone who keeps his eyes and his mind open. Here's a quote from the New York Times. No one can seriously maintain at the present time that the rites of a shaman could influence the weather. Well, only those who have seen it done or done it. I've seen it, and I've seen wells witched out and all that sort of thing. It's a question of clicking in. But we can see the same process in operation all around us, round the clock. Just make a habit of noting what you are thinking and feeling when you encounter an intersection point that caught your attention. It could be words on a passing truck, an advertisement, or a person. Didn't I see him before in the deli and the drugstore? You did, but he isn't following you. He's just in the same time groove. I remember seeing this man in a deli, and nearly ran into him, in fact. Then he is opposite to me on the subway, and I know he will get off at my stop, which is Franklin Street, and he did. Nothing more to it than that. I'm thinking about New Mexico and come around the corner, and there's a New Mexico license plate, New Mexico, land of enchantment. Well, some of my students became quite paranoid and said people were following them and that everything was talking to them and everything had meaning. I said, of course it has meaning. But it was too much for some of them. One of them heard voices saying that I was the Beast 666 or some such nonsense for that, and he had to kill me. Well, he later found Jesus, or Jesus found him, I don't know which, but I got a note from him. Also, you can alter your surroundings by altering your point of observation, and that is an act of magic that is performed by every artist. You can't learn anything, you can't teach anybody anything they don't know already on some level. And you can't show anyone anything they haven't already seen. He just won't see it. Of course, there are people that just don't want to see. There's always the danger of seeing more than you can take. And consider that dedicated professional non-seers are in all positions of power. And non-seeing is an escalating process. The less you see today, the less you will see tomorrow, and so forth. Meanwhile, cats are being boiled alive for food in South Korea. The remaining rainforest is being rapidly destroyed. And there is always, of course, some group brutally oppressing or exterminating another group, leaving a trail of underground terrorist cells, Biafrans, Armenians. Remember the starving Armenians of the 20s? Well, they still maintain a very active terrorist cell. And separatists in all directions, performing their own atrocities and absolutely justified in doing so, at least in their own unwavering opinion. Well, we could stop for some questions at this point. Some questions, anyone? No questions. Well, in that case, I would like to say something about the techniques of the big lie. L. Ron Hubbard was a master of the big lie, and he had all these rules for, there are a number of rules. Always accuse others of doing what you are doing yourself. And here are some techniques for cutting other people's communication lines. Premature acknowledgement. Acknowledge before the person comes to the point. Laugh before he finishes a joke. Under acknowledgement. Like you just couldn't have said anything so stupid and distasteful. Over acknowledgement. Like there's nothing more to say on the subject. Pretend not to understand the most obvious considerations. At crucial moments, create interruptions and diversions. You see, it isn't the truth that hurts, it's a blatant lie, the big lie. Here, writer has spent 7 years on this book, and the pains he has taken are quite apparent to the discerning eye. The critic says, this slovenly potpourri obviously thrown together in a few weeks, you see. That's what gets to people. Pick out the most meticulous, neat and fastidious person in the office and call him a slob. The person is left smarting and gasping with outrage, and that is precisely what you want to accomplish. You can see the big lie in operation all around you. Well, here's a blatant example of anti-gun propaganda. Laws of the United States, and he was also a security guard with a pistol permit. You see, it's the outrageous misrepresentation that is precisely the point. If your case is weak, stay as far as possible from the facts. No distortion is too outrageous. You remove your case from the court of fact, and then anything goes. That's what Hearst did with his false armistice. Writers sometimes write to make it happen. There's always that question, that people ask you, would you write if you were on a desert island? Well, yes, I would try to write in great detail a ship that would come and pick me up. With the captain and everybody, how they happen to get off course, and as precisely as possible. But writers may also write to keep it from happening. If he presents with sufficient precision exactly how it could happen, chances are it won't. Well, he has, in a way, upstaged destiny, which must always present the face of surprised recognition. I mean, if you've already seen it, it's the principle of inoculation with a dead or weakened virus. So, if it's precise enough, it can have that effect. I feel that, for example, that day after in Lawrence, Massachusetts, seems to make it, in my mind, less probable that it will happen. It's already happened. Yes. The day after. It was a picture about an atomic attack, filmed in Lawrence, Kansas, where I live. So I think maybe the film might even keep it from happening or make it less probable. It would just be too pat, Oh, come on, let's have some questions here. Nobody got any questions about anything? Yes.
Well, it's about writing, projecting, writing from the past, writing from memory. Is what you remember worth writing? You tend to sort of those points of perception which might come up in one's memory.
Speak louder, Dan.
You know how certain points of perception come up in one's memory? Are those the things to write if you're looking backwards?
Well, I guess it's about the only thing. I mean, what did Hemingway say about writing is remembering accurately? But you have nothing but your own total input as subject for writing. And certainly memory is, well, it's perhaps the most important. Because a writer's never going to catch up to the present moment.
So, would you say you'd actually have to re-experience these things on some kind of sensory level to be able to write about them accurately?
Well, the more clearly you can reconstruct them in your own mind, the better chance you have of doing the same in the reader's mind. If you can't see it, you can't make the reader see it or experience it as a totality, see it, hear it, touch it, whatever. I think that's sort of what writing is all about, yes.
Is it not possible, though, that a too detailed recall of the past can inhibit your imaginative input into your work?
Well, you've got to be the judge of that, how detailed you want it to be. I think of course, there's definitely a thing as too much detail in writing. A few simple details, the first thing you would see, say a description of a person, the first thing you would notice about them is often better than the most detailed inventories. Yes, that certainly is true. Yes?
William, if I remember correctly, you started writing prose when you were probably older than most people in this class. When you started, did you have false starts? Did you I know you read voluminously, and there's a lot of writing education that takes place when you read. But in terms of developing your prose style and just the ability to stare at yourself coming back off a piece of paper, was there a period of time where it was less mature than what you ended up doing quite quickly, I suppose, with your first works that were published?
Well, I would say that I had less difficulty with the first works like Junkie than I had later on. That is to say, I had set myself rather a simple task, so I didn't have so many false starts. But since then, since I do nothing else but write, I have innumerable false starts, and good God, I've thrown away 1,000 pages at least, completely destroyed. And yes, I have I don't know how many novels that I started and then dropped at some point along the way. They didn't work for some reason. That's part of writing, I think, and some of the most discouraging part of writing is you do an awful lot of bad writing in order to do a little any good writing. Incredibly bad. I think it'd be very interesting to make a collection of some of the worst writing by good writers. Like I've got some here somewhere. Oh yes, like Shakespeare, the end of Titus Andronicus. Let us repair and alter well the state that like events may ne'er it ruinate. Oh my God. But most writers, of course, have prudently destroyed that sort of thing. I bet, well, I don't know. I know I have destroyed an awful lot of writing, at least 1,000 pages. Let's see. Oh, yes, questions. Yes.
So, are you recommending wishing or warning against it? I mean,
I recommend it. I have, should we say, not an ulterior, but a very obvious motive here. I would like people to get people experimenting with these machines. First place, I think there's a fortune in it. If someone could just get that little something, that they could patent. In the present stage, you can't patent it. It's just an electronic device. But I don't know anything about electronics. And I'd like to find someone who could potentiate it in some way.
how big is it?
It's not big at all. It's just about big enough to put a photograph in, 2 little plates, and then it has a little box. And you plug that into into the output, that's all. Into any electrical plug. Now, I don't know who made this thing, but it looks very simple to me. And he gives full instructions in this book for exactly how to make it. There are a number of other experiments too in the book. Experiments with spirals and all sorts of dowsing devices and one thing and another. So I recommend it very strongly to your attention. Well, of course, if the thing works at all, it could be extremely dangerous. Obviously, it could be a murder machine. So everyone would have to have one. Protect himself. So I'm hoping that someone will take it further than I have. But I certainly never did anything so stupid as to wish for money. Nor will I help Lem out with his gambling either on the machine. I drew the line at that.
In the modes of perception you're speaking of, do you include ideas of synchronicity?
I can't hear you.
In the modes of perception that you were mentioning, do you include the idea of synchronicity?
Oh, good heavens, yes. That's exactly what I'm talking about. I said there is this connection between everybody and his total environment. And scientists tell us that there's no meaning at all in everything we see out there. That's external reality, which can have no relation to human consciousness. Now, it seems to me, as I say, that this is an absolutely indefensible position. But it is the underlying dogma of science. I remember I was talking to a psychoanalyst once, and I said that I'd seen Kirsch's work, and he became hysterical. He said, "No, the person who threw the curse is a hysteric, and the victim is a paranoid." And he thought he'd said something. Well, I remember this case was in the papers. It was in Australia, and he did something wrong, and they put a curse on him, which was a snake that would wrap around his ribs and crush him, smother him. Well, they got him to a hospital, and he was in an iron lung for, I think, about 2 weeks, but he did come out. Oh, yes.
You were talking about getting into a pattern of non-seeing where it becomes progressive and gets more and more. How do you get out of a pattern like that?
Well, any descending spiral like that is very difficult to get out of. It's negative feedback. Yeah, and you see, the less you see, the less you're going to want to see. It becomes more and more painful for you to see anything, until finally a point of no return is reached where you just couldn't make the transition.
Did you ever feel like you were in that with your writing, where you just couldn't pick up a pen and write? It was just...
Oh, no, that's an entirely different thing. No, I'm talking about people like the scientists who refuse to see. You could put it right in front of him. One said no matter what evidence was offered, he wouldn't believe it. Well, you're wasting your time with someone like that. But most of the power in this world is vested in the hands of people who do not want to see. In fact, it's very important to them not to see. Very important indeed. I'd like to read this quote from Henry Miller. Who writes the great books? It isn't we who sign our names. What is an artist is a man with antennae who knows how to hook up to currents in the cosmos or whatever. Who is original? Everything that we are doing, everything that we think exists already, and we are only intermediaries. What he's saying then, a writer is an interpreter, a map maker, a transcriber. And he says a writer shouldn't think too much. I think he is thinking there of conscious, front brain, linear thinking. That is this little tip of our consciousness which in many of us, that's all we have access to, has been compared to the tip of an iceberg, which appears above water. And I think it's the job of the writer to show as much as he can of what is below the water. No, yes. Yes.
Have you encountered synchronicity in your cut-up experiments?
Oh God, yes.
Will you give some examples?
Well, I've encountered, synchronicity and even prophecy. I was cutting up some material about old man Getty, and it emerged it's a bad thing to sue your own father, and his son did sue him shortly afterwards. And, I've given you that example of coming around the corner, thinking about New Mexico, and there's New Mexico license plate. I've also done experiments with recording in the street, and then, reconstructing just when this and that happens. Sometimes there'll be quite loud noises on there that for some reason or another you didn't hear, or even voices that you can't remember where they came from. That's an extension of the walk exercise. The simplest form of the exercise is to walk around the block, and in a city is best, where there's a considerable input of image, and to make a particular point of remembering exactly what you were thinking and feeling when you saw a sign or read something on a passing truck, or someone asked you what time it was, or whatever. These intersection points. And that, as I say, can result in people becoming very paranoid, simply because they've been going through life with their eyes closed. You ask them, I've asked people, they live on a block 10 years. I said, what's on that block? What stores? They won't know in some cases. Well, if you've gone through life with your eyes closed, and then suddenly you begin to see, it can be very upsetting and very painful. Even overwhelming, yes.
Back to the wishing machine, I was wondering if you think it's actually the machine that achieves the wish, or if it's just a focus point that helps you consolidate your energies.
Both. I don't know, I just wanted to try it. And my impression is that it does work sometimes to some extent. And that's why I'm very anxious to see further experiments. I'd like to see there's all kinds of possibilities. Suppose a whole room full of people got together and concentrated on one wish in a machine. Or else they could all do it at the same time in different places, synchronizing their watches. We could have the wishing hour on TV. You see, there are all sorts of possibilities to this device, and I'd like to see some of them realized. Yes?
Quite often you hear people say that you only should write what you know, and then on the other hand, that Henry Miller quote saying he was an intermediary, and also Jack Spicer said he felt like a radio. If you believe that, can you consequently write about things you knew absolutely nothing about?
No, because you do know something about them. In other words, suppose I'm writing now about Madagascar, where I've never been. Well, I probably would go. But I have all sorts of pictures of it in my mind. Well, those are valid. When I get there, I might find that doesn't at all square with the actual place of Madagascar. But like a dream or a fantasy, that is quite valid writing material. Sure, totally important. Dreams are a very important part of my input. I get, it's hard to say how much percentage, because I'll get a dream that will lead to all sorts of other areas that I develop, of course, in the waking state. But the original idea, concept came from that dream.
I want to put it in percentages, but what amount of dreams do you use in writing your fiction?
Well, I say it's hard to put it in percentage, but I would say that the influence of dreams can be traced throughout fiction. But I'm just talking about now, talking just absolutely straight transposition from a dream, like in Nova Express, Daddy Longlegs looked like Uncle Sam on stilts, that whole section. Well, that came from a dream. I saw this very tall man in a cool room with potted rubber plants, and I knew somehow that this was Daddy Longlegs. And when I woke up, I wrote out the whole passage.
Are there any other familiar images in your writing that are dreams, or images that we might recognize from your writing that came from dreams?
Oh, lots of them. The health officer, the whole concept of the health officer in Cities of the Red Night, that was a dream.
From Naked Lunch? The talking asshole?
No, that was not really a dream. I just have to look through some of the, yes, there's quite a lot of dream material in there.
You write down all the dreams that you wake in, remember?
I do, yes.
What hours?
Whatever hours. You see, I wake up about 10 times in the course of the average night. I never have slept, I don't ever sleep through. So I get up, maybe have a glass of water. If I remember a dream, I'll write it down. If you don't write them down, you'll very often forget them. I can lay in bed and go over a dream 10 times and think, if I'm too lazy to get up and it's cold. And I think I've got it, and it can be completely gone in the morning. Other dreams, you won't forget no matter whether you write them down or not.
Kerouac had a brakeman's lantern at his bedside. Do you have any particular instruments that you use?
Just a pen or pencil and paper, that's all. I have tried it with a tape recorder. That works pretty well. Oh, you have to speak clearly. Often you can't make out what you said, and sometimes I can't read my own writing in the morning.
Have you ever spoken in any other languages or anything when you woke up and spoke in your tape recorder?
Well, no, but I'll have dreams in other languages. Since I know, I'm a very poor linguist, but I do know a little French, Spanish, and German, and there will be dream encounters. And dream encounters with people who speak languages that I don't understand at all. Or I might understand it, but I don't know the language, or have some idea as to what they're saying. Any more questions? Yeah, I remember that somebody wanted me to write something on the soul of America. An individual soul is sufficiently complex, but the concept of a national soul really appalled me by its vagueness. Of course, it's only a foreigner that would undertake to write about the soul of another country. Got a lot here about souls. I have a rough not definition, but description of a soul as being an electromagnetic field, or perhaps a series of electromagnetic fields that precisely activates a given organism. I wouldn't say that you are your body any more than a pilot is the plane, but that his interests are vitally connected to the plane. Further questions? Yes.
When you're taking notes on your dreams in the morning, you find you have to rewrite them a couple times. Sometimes I'll be writing out a dream, and then I will think of the another dream and go on and then rewrite the dream. And after I finish that dream, I'll go back and rewrite it because I will remember sections of that segment of the dream. And I'll have to rewrite it a couple times.
Oh, well, that always happens, I think. That you'll write one and then you'll remember, that'll remind you of some more, or it might even remind you of a dream you had a previous night that you'd forgotten. It just takes, funny how it just takes one little note. Maybe sometimes 2 words or even 1 word is all you need, and then suddenly a whole dream section will come back. But they don't come back necessarily in any linear form. How many of you have read An Experiment with Time by Dunn? Oh dear, nobody. Well, he was an English mathematician, physicist, one of the early pioneers in aviation, who published this book in 1924 called An Experiment with Time. Well, he wrote all these dreams down, and he found that they contained material not only from the past, but also from the future, that there were clear references to future events, and he gives a large number of those, a large number of examples. But he did say this, which I found to be true. If you dream, say, of an earthquake or a fire or something like that, you're not dreaming about the event itself, but about the time when you will, in the future time, when you will see it on the television or in the newspapers. And I found that to be true. Well, I think anyone who does write their dreams down long enough will find clear examples of future events. They may not be very significant or important. I remember once I had a dream in Tangiers about that I saw a wardrobe float by the window. And the next day I was sitting in the Café de Paris, and indeed a wardrobe did float by. The man had a headband, and he was carrying it on his back. You couldn't see the man, but you could just see the wardrobe floating by. No particular significance, but very clear. There was no doubt in my mind that somehow I had slipped ahead and seen that. Yes.
Did you write an event like that down?
Oh, sure. Yeah. But
Recorded. Once you have recorded an event like that or a dream, and how do you then, how do you work it into does memory bring it back, or do you premeditate the moment where you enter it into a story?
I don't understand. All right, here I have a dream, and that then I will elaborate on it and incorporate it into a fictional context.
At the time you have it.
Pardon?
You won't store it away necessarily for some future time.
Well, I may use it. Well, I have very extensive dream notes, and sometimes I'll use them immediately, and sometimes I won't have any immediate use for them, but may go back through the notebook later on, and find a number of dreams that are usable. In fact, that frequently happens. I'm reminded of a dream, then I have to go look for it in my files. Yes?
I find it interesting too that if you get a group of people together, that their dreams can start influencing each other. That in this fraternity for a month, there would be evidence that the dream energies would start mingling. And I don't know how you know that, except there would be other influences on yourself.
Well, yeah, if you can get some kind of sort of cross-reference between people. Sometimes they will have the same dream. A friend of mine was in Ghana collecting snakes, and he and his partner was with him. They were sleeping in the same room, and they both had this same nightmare every night of like a black man on stilts standing over them. It was a shared dream. His partner incidentally was killed by a green mamba in Ghana. Oh, yes.
You said that when you write something down with precision, you can make it happen or prevent it from happening. And my experience has been that usually when I write something strong like that, they always happen. So many people have died years or maybe months after I have written about it. What's the trick to prevent it from happening?
Well, I don't know. That's partly the intention of the writer. Whether he wants it to happen. Now, I have sometimes said, this is something I do not want to happen, therefore I will not write it.
Yeah, that's where I'm now. I'm very afraid of writing.
Well, you have to be careful. In other words, like these things, if they work at all, they can be very dangerous indeed. Yes.
William, not particularly wanting to descend into psychology, but a friend of mine began a series of dreams involving his growth, his health. In fact, he did eventually develop cancer of the thyroid, but before that was ascertained medically. Voluminous, gothic, mythic dreams of all sorts, very elaborate. And in any case, the prophecy of dreams became true. He had this problem. Then he did or did not pay attention to it. That's not really the question I want to ask. But religious people or people who are involved with shamanic thinking or even people who follow Joseph Campbell's notions of journey of the hero, they tend to envision these portents as being from protectors or totems or angels, I suppose, if it would be another background that people have. And I wondered what, do you think it's a simpler situation than that? Or are these external...
John, I think some of them come from one source and some from another, and very often from mixed sources. Like everything, like the whole of our input.
Well, then he did not pay attention to what he eventually thought the thrust of these messages were, and felt that his life became disastrous. Is that one man's story, or do you think there is, if you're getting messages to say, don't cross that street in your dream, and you cross them, I mean, is there guidance that you should listen to?
Well, there's guidance that you shouldn't, guidance that you shouldn't. You just have to be able to know. I've been frequently saved, sometimes from very drastic sanctions by listening to a hunch. Don't go in there. I think you should always listen to a strongly felt feeling, if I got a bad feeling about something, that is very important. And you override those bad feelings at your peril.
So all dreams can be regarded as hunches?
No, not necessarily. I don't think dreams and hunches are necessarily the same thing, although you may have hunches in dreams. Yes?
I agree with what you're saying about bad feelings, but the problem is not to become paranoid, so you start creating these.
Oh, absolutely. You have to be very careful on that point. I mean, some people get so they can't go outside the house, you know. God, you know, I've got a bad feeling about this and a bad feeling about that. But if you listen to it when it's strong, but don't let it take you over, there's always a necessity for maintaining a balance there. Yes.
Have you got your glimpses or clues of the move into space from your dreams?
Oh, lots of them, yes. Lots of space-oriented dreams, or dreams of being in space or in orbit.
Is
have any thoughts about all these rockets blowing up? I mean, I understand it's to the point now where the Western world has no capacity to launch any satellites.
I don't quite understand the
I just
question.
wonder if you have any thoughts about sort of, if there's any meaning to all these rocket explosions, you know, the Challenger and all.
Well, the only thing is, you mean the Challenger?
Yeah, and the Air Force had.
Yeah. Well,
And the French had one.
first place to remember that anything will come in series. If you have a bad airplane accident, watch and you'll have another in a few days. And sometimes the incidents are so similar. I'll be reading one. I said, didn't I read this before? And there were indeed two separate incidents, but so similar that you can't really hardly tell the difference. And that is one of the basic rules of life, is that good things and bad things come in series. The only rule of gambling, which is plunge when you're winning and quit when you're losing. Or as Jesus Christ said, to him that hath shall be given, from him that hath not shall be taken even that which he hath, I guess. Which he hath. Well, if he starts doubling up when he loses, he won't have much very long. But that undoubtedly is one of the principal rules, and you can apply that to your own life. If you start out in the morning and everything goes wrong, and it looks like a bad day, that's not the day to take a lot of chances. It's not the day to try something new. It's a day to retrench and be careful.
Have you read or studied any on dream yoga?
Any what?
Have you read or studied any on dream yoga, Naropa's yoga?
I
Dream yoga?
don't think I have, no. Was that, is he speaking about?
I think the main point of that yoga was to remain conscious during your dreams. And
Oh.
the significance of whether you are a participant within the dream or whether you are observing the dream. Is there significance there? I'm not sure what that is, but whether it's prophetic or a signifying dream or whether it's just discursive meaning.
Well, yes, maintaining control and consciousness in a dream. You find that you find Don Juan. He makes quite a point of it. And there's a woman called Lynn Andrews who's covering the whole, the same territory from the female point of view. I've read all her books. They're quite interesting. Good Medicine Woman, and the latest one is Jaguar Woman. And all her guides, her teachers, do make a point of remembering and holding your consciousness in a dream. Sometimes you, in my own experience, sometimes I succeed in doing that and sometimes I don't, but also oh yeah, I know that I'm dreaming. And then you can, to some extent, control the dream or guide the dream. What is his name? Monroe, the Journeys Out, who wrote Journeys Out of the Body and has now written another book. That he makes a point of that, of being asleep but yet conscious. Various techniques for doing that. For going to sleep but maintaining your alert consciousness.
Did you want to say anything about that? In the Lynn Andrews books, she's sort of talking very much about bikini power, feminine energy, and what I was wondering what your take is on that.
On what exactly?
On the feminine energy that Lynn Andrews talks about in her book. I was wondering what your take is.
Well,
Bikini power.
I just don't know. But I don't know. Her book seemed pretty authentic to me. I was impressed by them. Yes.
You talk about keeping yourself open, being able to see.
Mhm.
You also talk in the preface to your latest book about believing in possession. How do you see that? Is it something that you keep at bay, this idea of possession? Is it something you don't want to have happen?
Oh yes. Well, generally speaking, yes. Well, there's a difficult question there. That is, you laying yourself open to experience, and that's the only way that you can experience. But also, there's a danger of laying yourself open to something that is very injurious.
How do you know that?
You don't. That's just it. You don't. It's like the when you let your immunity down there, then you can get AIDS. Well, I don't know. It depends on individual cases, but that has always been a problem of being receptive, but at the same time able to defend yourself against injurious attacks and influences, because they're sure to be there. It's like disease organisms.
Personal belief on death.
Well, well, as I've often said, how do you know that you aren't dead already? No, but quite seriously, the bardo, the period between death and rebirth, which is supposed to be populated by some mythological monsters, but I think it's much more likely if the monsters were too mythological, you'd wise up that this wasn't real. But if it was very much like your real life, you might very well be dead and not know it at all.
I was just going to say, those monsters are projections of your own mind.
Exactly, yes. But as I frequently said, I do believe in the possibility of survival after death. I think it's the only goal worth striving for.
So you think that consciousness continues?
It's yes, in some sense. Well, it's hard to say, but you shouldn't be clinging on to an individual ego, a me. In fact, that's the worst thing you can do, to try to hang on to your individual me, like someone like Mr. Hurst, who is obsessed with immortality. But he undoubtedly conceived immortality as Hurst.
No, it's a
Yeah.
Somewhere the Dalai Lama was interviewed, and he talks about, I think he's being questioned about DNA and various psychophysical states and structures, and he says very clearly that consciousness can't be seen or measured or has no physical reality at all.
Well, it can be seen only as a concomitant of something else, as an accompaniment. We know that certain consciousness accompanies certain events in the nervous system. That doesn't mean that they're identical at all. Not at all.
But it's not matter, is the point. It's not
No.
matter.
Well, no, you see, that's the thing. You see, matter, you pick something up, you have moved it, but it is not going to move itself. Your body is made of very much the same material as this paper. And to my way of thinking, it does not move on its own. It is animated by a spirit that certainly has something in common with electromagnetic fields.
Mr. Burroughs,
Yeah.
you spoke just a minute ago about DNA. I read an article in the paper a few weeks back about a research scientist in Duarte, California, who said that he converted some RNA patterns into musical notation and vice versa, and found that there were certain resemblances, like, for instance, some of Chopin's nocturnes turned out to resemble the gene polymerase II. There were a funeral march one of Chopin's funeral marches resembled the cancer-causing gene.
Well, that's fascinating. No, I hadn't read that. Where'd you read this?
It was in the Denver Post. There was
Oh.
a media article, I think.
Well, that's very interesting indeed. If I'd seen it, I certainly would have cut it out.
I can Xerox and bring it.
No, that'd be interesting, yeah. Well, he conducted extensive experiments, different music.
Yeah, there are several examples listed. There was one where there was an enzyme that breaks down lactose that resembled a lullaby. Various sorts of marches and things that resembled other kinds of genes. I can't pull the rest of the specifics out, but I can show you there.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Because the physicists are always trying to get something down to a field theory that will explain everything. And they get it all set up, and then there's another factor. Well, I think there's always going to be another factor beyond. They get it all, they thought, all set up, and there's something else. I don't know why they want to know everything. Yes. Excuse me. Well, yeah.
Do you mind if I bring up dreams again?
Bring up what?
Dreams again?
No, go ahead.
In your own experience, did you find that when you started recording your dreams that the content changed? Or that maybe you had less nightmares or more? Or do you even record those?
No, I didn't, because I've done this for many, many years. Even before I started to write, I had a habit of writing dreams down.
Do you record even your nightmares?
Oh, well, yeah, well, recorded, written down, yes. Yes, so many of them, yes.
Very painful to do. Is that hard to do?
No, not at all. It's quite interesting. But many people remember nightmares, whether they write them down or not, but sometimes they won't. They just know that they had a nightmare, but they don't remember the content at all. One of the best literary uses of a nightmare was in what is her name? McCullers. The heart is a lonely hunter. That dream that he had, which seems to be very archetypical. I've had similar dreams. You remember the dream? Well, he was in an Eastern setting, and people are milling around, a complete silence. There's a terrible bright sun in the sky, the look of hunger in the faces, and he's carrying a bundle. And he's looking around, he's carried it a long while, he's looking around for somewhere to put it down, and he can't find any place to put it down. This growing horror of walking on and on through this silent, starving crowd with this bundle that he can't put down, and you wonder what's in the bundle. Yeah.
I've had the experience of writing dreams and cumulatively building up dream recollection until the dreams themselves become so complicated and exuberant and apparently meaningless that I get disgusted with the whole process and have to stop so that I begin to have more significant dreams. Have you ever had that?
I can't say that I have, Alan. Some dreams just seem rather dull and pointless, but usually those are not the exuberant or plentiful or variegated dreams. I mean, just you might dream of taking your clothes to the laundry or something. And but no, I've not had that experience at all.
You know, the more I pay attention, the more I dream. And the more I dream, the more complicated they get until they're finally unworkable or unusable.
I don't have that experience at all. Just not at all.
Okay. What's the relation between daydreaming and dreams?
Well, I think daydream is a misnomer. Generally, when people talk their daydreams, they mean they're sort of vapid fantasies about making more money or or seducing their girlfriend or that sort of thing. Well, that's not a dream, really. It's just often just a vapid, self-indulgent fantasy. I mean, people do dream when they're awake. It's quite similar to dreaming while you're asleep. Yes.
I was just wondering if you meditate at all.
Lever?
Oh, during meditation, sometimes there's something that seems to lapse into very much like what a dream is. I mean, it's not a conscious fantasy. Things are just going beyond control.
Mm-hmm.
I was just wondering if you meditate, and if you do, if it's possible to use those.
Well, no, I don't meditate, but I do achieve a state where images are going through my mind without without conscious volition. That is sort of undirected thought. And that is precisely what I always endeavor to do when I'm writing. To get, in other words, I'm transcribing a movie, a film that I see in my mind as best I can into words. And the less there is of my ego, my me in there, the better, myself, my identity.
Is it like through practice that you can keep it all going and write at the same time without like stopping it, changing it by
Well, there's always the difficulty of the actual procedure of writing. That is, you're there at a typewriter, and so it's you're never going to quite catch up with your thoughts. They're always going to be ahead of you. But yeah, I think you can achieve that state. I think that the Buddhists call it undirected thought, but not completely undirected, because you're usually in your writing. You're in the process of you've got some idea. Although in many cases I don't know what's going to happen next at all in my books. Just not at all. I get many surprises. Yes.
Do you edit a lot?
A great deal. About usually 3 or 4 times.
Back on this subject of ego and writing and so on, this comes up in some of the classes. Students you need, more confidence, more ambition, etc. But the actual state, as people and many authors have described it over centuries, has been the actual description of the process has been one of sort of not even really being there in that usual sense. I thought maybe you could say a few words about your...
Well, yeah, I mean, Mailer said I was a writer who may be possessed by genius, not possessed genius. Nobody possesses it. And, well, I think it's always something that happens sometimes and not at others. And, I don't know, you just try to recognize it when it happens and make yourself available. If I have to get up in the middle of the night and write, well, I'll do it.
We talked also in this class the other day about creating an atmosphere or rituals, writers' rituals. I wonder if you have any particular view. Take a walk or have a cup of tea.
No, I don't have any set rituals at all. It just sometimes it's good and sometimes it isn't. That helps. There's no doubt about it. No, it does. It actually stimulates the visual centers. Yeah.
People have said, among them Frank O'Connor, that a work of art is not only an extension of the object it represents, but it's also by nature very different from it. I was wondering what sort of separation you see between the written account of your dreams and the dreams themselves.
Well, any artistic description or any artistic transliteration has got to be unprecise. I could probably do, if I was a painter, or I could illustrate some of my dreams, they'd be much closer, but words are pretty awkward to, often I'm describing not only very complicated, but very unfamiliar scenes. And it's never going to be any more than an approximation, unfortunately.
Back to the editing, how do you decide what to edit?
Well, that's just a matter of choice. You just know, or hope you know, what is good and what isn't, or what is better and what needs changing. But of course, writers are notoriously bad judges of their own work, and they do make mistakes. That's why I always want someone else to edit too. James Grauerholt's done a great deal of editing, and once took out 100 pages from a manuscript. Most of them stayed out, but about 20 of them went back in. So I think it's very helpful if you have someone whose judgment you can rely on to look over what you've done, because and another way, of course, is just to wait and go back over it in a month or something like that. But sometimes you've got deadlines, and you can't do it. Yes.
You mentioned that you thought scientists spent too much time trying to figure things out. Maybe in this conversation, but I wonder a lot about the why of things. Do you think those are sometimes questions that are left alone?
Well, I don't know. That's up to the individual, but I just don't see why they have this passion to know everything. To know, they think if we can know every cause, then we will know every effect. I don't think it even works that way. And I just don't understand their particular why that motivates them. I find them a very unsympathetic bunch of people. Did you have a question?
Something along the lines of editing, which is what I've found is no matter what I do or no matter what anyone does, a certain percentage of people will think it's completely full of shit. Other people will say they can relate to it and they're getting something from it. So other than for technical correctness, does it really matter what anyone says about what you read?
Well, matter to who? Does it matter to you? I don't know. Well, of course, there's no doubt about it that the critics have influence. You have to care what a critic says if you want to sell your books, because they do influence the sale of books. There's no question of that. Good reviews are good. Just from that point of view. Well, it's a business.
William?
Yes.
When you were talking about synchronicity, I guess the synchronicity for me that I kind of can't let go of is that I just finished reading Lynn Andrews' books.
I can't hear you. What was it?
I was saying that the synchronicity for me right now is that I just finished reading all of those Lynn Andrews books, and I still want to pursue that with you, and I was wondering if you could tell us what your connection with her is.
With who?
Lynn Andrews.
Oh, Lynn Andrews. Well, she sent me her first book, and I had it kicking around a long while before I was sort of ready to read, and I was interested, very interested, and we started a correspondence. And I've had exchanged several letters with her, and now I've just finished her latest book, The Jaguar Woman.
Do you know where she is now?
Why? I don't know where she is. She may well be in Los Angeles. That's her permanent. Her permanent address is Los Angeles. But she might be up with Agnes Whistling Elk in Canada, where she spends quite a lot of time.
She was here this year. She was here this year.
Oh, did she talk?
Yeah.
Where? Here?
I thought she was just at a bookstore. She just came to sign books.
Denver. She gave a lecture.
I may have seen it. I saw, I've seen several interviews with her, and I imagine some of the same ground was covered. Were you there, Alan? No. Well, I'd like to hear her. I'd like to meet her in person.
John Steinbeck was there.
Bill, I want to bring up just for a second the topic of death, rebirth, and immortality and so forth, which is much in evidence in the place of dead roads, and as I know in the Western lands, in which you're comparing the Tibetan Book of the Dead and the Egyptian Book of the Dead, and really sort of saying that the Western lands is talk about another kind of Book of the Dead, even though it uses the Egyptian nomenclature for the destinations. And I guess the question is, are you familiar, first of all, with the concept of the Bodhisattva vow?
Perhaps not precisely. I know some. I have some acquaintance with the Egyptian Book of the Dead. I mean, excuse me, the Tibetan Book of the Dead.
Well, simply put, people here can amplify on this, that it basically means that you have life after life, and there might come a point where you could cease to do that, which would be a relief, but you go ahead and come back until everybody else is at that same stage, right? Have a compassionate thing foregoing it. And I just wondered, on the face of it, your quest for immortality, or your study of the quest for immortality, is completely at odds with that. But you could see it as kind of a Yankee bodhisattva, going to keep being a gunslinger and life after life till all the bad guys are gone.
Well, yeah, I don't see it. I don't think it can be quite that simple. That you have to stay around until all the sentient beings have been saved. Well, you'd stay around an awfully long time, I'm afraid. When people are, as I say, they won't see, there's nothing you can do in many cases. Now, it's often a very costly illusion to think that you can.
It seems like you've dedicated your art to the idea of actually waking people up, or
Well, so far as they can be. I mean, so far as they see something, fine. But if they can't, you're wasting your time, I feel.
But the whole bodhisattva aspiration is something that you've been, it seems, personally engaged with through your art. Not that you would recognize or see this.
No, not exactly.
But you might have to come back in the next lifetime to continue this same work.
Well, who knows? No, I'm dubious.
What would you rather do?
Well, as Brian says, we are here to go into space.
Well, this consciousness could exist in other...
Oh, of course it could. Yeah. Well, I think that you don't just sit down and make a conscious choice about things like that at all. In fact, you can't.
Well, so presumably, enlightened beings could have a choice about where they'd come back.
Yes. Yes, but I don't think that it would be a conscious decision. I mean, you don't sit down and say, I will do this, or I'm going there. You sit down and then you are there.
Well, James was talking about the whole bodhisattva impulse would be to come back in a place where you'd be most effective in terms of helping other people.
Why other people? I'm much more interested in animals now. The lemurs. We've got enough people. Too many. I don't know how Buckminster Fuller could have said that overpopulation is not a problem when the rainforest, which is the lungs of the world, is being destroyed at just a terrific rate of speed. There won't be any in another 50 or 100 years. They wake up and find you can't breathe. Those things happen quite quickly, not gradually.
Do you have any message to people who choose to ignore pieces of information such as that and say they'd rather focus on the positive and uplifting aspects of their own life?
Well, I have no message to people who can't hear it. As I say, you're wasting your time.
One more question?
When
when you like walk around the block in New York and you think about New Mexico and you see the nice little
What?
license plate.
Loud.
When you're walking around the block in New York and you're thinking about New Mexico and then you see the New Mexico license plate, and then this stuff keeps on happening. And like let's say you meet a Judy, then you meet like 3 different Judys in about a week.
No, sure, that's the way it goes. That's the way it goes, sure. Yeah.
What happens and what do you do?
What do you mean, what do you do? It's just part of, what do you do about anything? It's part of life. It just, things that you didn't notice before, you're noticing now. It just expands your area of operation indefinitely.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you. I hope that some of you will get this.